Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Cultivate Life. I am your host, Makiba Jane, just fixing myself up here, getting ready to bring you another episode where we aim to bring you all the health and wellness information in the African diaspora. I'm so excited for today's discussion. We are going to talk about our wombs. So get ready, sit back, share out the link to your family and friends, and we will be right back after this. All right, family. So I'm here with our special guest, Jasmine Jazz Feliciano. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, thank you. So I'm really excited for having you on the show today. Now, Jazz is the founder of Lovebox Brew Co., and she's going to tell you guys what that is in a minute. But also, with that comes the responsibility of a yoga steam practitioner, a womb priestess. So, Jazz, tell the people what you do, and just welcome to our platform today. I think your audio is a little bit. Try now.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay. Can you get a visual of me?
Yes,
Okay,
you can see
perfect.
you now.
Sorry about that. I got like lagging Wi-Fi over here. But in any case, so my business essentially is circulated on womb wellness. So what I do is I cultivate herbs. I create, grow the herbs actually. I create the actual blends that go into a specific type of treatment in regards to a holistic treatment, regards to steaming practices, and so on and so forth. What prompted me to start this business was it started years ago when I started to study holistic medicine on my own, and I was working as a radiation therapist. And after seeing countless patients come in for a variety of cancers, I realized what is it that we're not doing? What is it are we not implementing that can be better enhanced to the treatment? And as I started to study radiation and the impact on what it did to the body biologically, I started to realize that perhaps maybe this is working backwards. And perhaps maybe this is not the way that's going to treat it on a holistic level, but rather put a band aid on a very big issue that could also catapult to another issue, and which it did. So a lot of times I saw a lot of patients return back for radiation again to the same site in a different approach, or they undergo another cycle of chemotherapy. But as we all know, chemotherapy is a fluid that's toxic in the body. So not only does it attack the cancer cells, but it also attacks the healthier cells. And so, what it did was it put the patient in a position of having natural imbalances in the body, whether that's hormonal, whether that was from a blood composition, whether that was from an alkaline acidic composition as well. So when that whole conflict just takes place biologically in the body, all you can see is just diseases happening. And it goes into this whole domino effect, unfortunately. So when I was exposing radiation treatments to these patients, the premise behind it is to treat the actual tumor bed, But what happens is that it compromising the surrounding normal tissues. And so these patients would come in and they would get treatment, but then they would have to deal with another issue like secondary leukemia down the road. So, what prompted me was seeing that and realizing that there has to be a better approach. And so I started to study holistic medicine, predominantly herbalism. And what I saw was a lot of women, especially women of color, Black women, coming in, getting these treatments to specifically their reproductive areas. So, like cervical cancer, uterine cancer, any type of gynecological treatment I had my hands on as far as treatment goes. Now, I've treated everything across the board, everything from prostate to breast to brain tumors, but it was very sad to see the amount of cases of patients that were coming in for gynecological issues. And so I started to study that. And then from there, my steaming practice actually started with myself because I wanted to. I remember back when I was in my preteens, I started to study the ancient practices that derived from Egypt or Kemet, and one of those practices was steaming. And because I got introduced to that, I started to realize that it got adopted across the way from all different cultures and not. It essentially started in Kemet, but a lot of cultures along the way across the board geographically adopted the same similar practices. They just call it under a different name. So, and essentially, it's just taking the herbal essences of that particular herb and the vapors just coming up into the vaginal canal, releasing its healing properties to restore the balance of and the pH of the vaginal canal, as well as bring healing to the surrounding organs like the uterus, the ovaries, the fallopian tubes, and so on and so forth. It's that type of practice that I employ that essentially I tell every woman to do consistently on a consistent basis. If they were coming in at the spa, at Aqua Aura Spa Wellness, and they were coming in to see me, I suggest doing a steam once a month with me, and then doing a maintenance steam in between those appointment times. And pretty much my approach is that I tell the clients that this is not um, a sort of treatment that you do just one time and then that's it. It's a consistent practice along with other holistic practices as well, which we'll touch base on today in regards to that. So I'm excited to share this information because I have a whole bunch of information and I'm hoping I can share this within the hour because I feel like this is so important, especially um, with today, what's going on in the environment, and how we react holistically to our bodies as women. So before I begin this whole discussion, I would like to give thanks to the divine. For allowing me to complete this task here on earth and to share this with the audience collectively, my ancestors, the elders, for bestowing the wisdom and the inner knowledge. For thank you, Makiba, for allowing me to get on this platform to speak on a very important topic that's near and dear to my heart. So to begin this wellness journey towards womb healing and so on and so forth, I highly recommend taking a very holistic approach where you're employing the mind, the body, and the soul. So this will be the basis for my discussion going forward as we honor the sacred cosmic seat of our creativity. So when it comes to our minds, um, what we tell ourselves verbally or even subconsciously, or even if it's not expressed verbally in a sense, transmute our energy, how we perceive ourselves, and thereby reflects onto the world. So, one of the most popular but effective ways to use our mind, in a sense, when we're healing our wombs, is affirmations. So, statements like, my uterus is vibrantly healthy and it sits within my womb as a sacred part of me, asserts in your mind that your vessel, specifically the uterus, is vibrantly functioning and is in harmony and is in balance. This accomplishes two things. One, it asserts the strength and the health of your womb. And then two, it affirms your divine connection with the sacred womb as well.
Right.
So
So I
that
think
example,
before
go ahead.
we get into how to um, use the affirmations and the different techniques into healing it, I think it's important to sort of preface it and highlight, the concerns, like you said, when you were working in the radiology industry, you saw a lot of these cases. Now, a lot of times,
Right.
you said take a holistic approach. That really, exactly what you're saying, deals with the whole person, the mind, the body, the soul. So, um, what do you feel as women like we are disconnected from or not taught that kind of gets us to a point where now we're experiencing these feminine issues, these uterine issues, the tumors, the cancers, the fibroids? Like, how do we, take stock of where we're at now in terms of our education and our feminine health and the way we care for it, and how do we relate that to now, like a whole body practice of being mindful of that space, and why should we,
That's a good question. So I think the first step is realizing, bringing that self awareness that perhaps maybe there is a disconnect, um, in a sense where, because a lot of times what dealing with these patients historically was realizing that, one, these women lack the proper knowledge, the education as to what was within their womb space. All they understood was, this is the place where I carry babies. This is the place where I have my period. And then that's that. It's such a very 2D type of visualization in their mind about what the womb was to them. So essentially, talking among with them and realize, being in a casual conversation, I realized that there was a disconnect because, yeah, essentially those are two primary functions of the womb, but it goes so beyond that. It's not just what the physical aspects of what the womb can do. It's a very multi-dimensional uh, type of organ that supersedes even beyond the 3D as well. And coming to the realization of that and how that plays out into your role as just a woman here on this earth, on this 3D plane, coming to that realization puts you in true alignment, essentially, I feel, with what your purpose is. What it gives you that guidance. It allows you to be highly intuitive and to use that power, essentially, and to govern it in a way where you can live your best life. And so what
right
winds
here.
up happening is that, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, go
Did I cut
ahead.
off? Okay. So what happens is that there's that disconnect because there's no realization. So I think the first step really is coming to the awareness of,
And how would one get into, say, the awareness of yourself? Because traditionally, especially in this society, we just see, first you start as a child, you're a young girl, you're a young woman. Sometimes you might be able to talk to your parents, sometimes you won't. It might be taboo depending on what, depending on your culture and your background. There might be certain practices already that women have in terms of taking care of their hygiene. But then beyond hygiene and, oh, can I talk about, what's happening with me or not? How do I, like, there's no like rites of passage, there's nothing, and
right.
then you grow up and then, like you said, we just think it's okay, well, we have our period and we have babies. How do you realize, like, how do you get, coming from that standpoint, you know, And then now fast forward 20 years later, you're experiencing fibroids, you're experiencing tumors, you're experiencing this. How does that now translate to I need to become in alignment with, myself and my purpose? Because there's no knowledge of that until that's something that actually kind of like propels you in life. Like, okay, let me
Right.
have something deeper to do. But unless you're coming with that knowledge already and then relating it to your womb, how do you jump from, how we traditionally grow up, and what do you see as things that maybe we can change about that narrative so we
Yeah.
can now become aware? But
Well, one of the things that I employ with my clients is suggesting to them if they have daughters, to teach them, to guide them in a way that, it's not just your menstruation, it's not just your period. It's here, it's you're steaming. Here, you're taking on this wellness practice to better support your womb. Back when I was growing up, my mom didn't know that much other than that your period was coming. Here's how you prepared for your period. So she was trying based off of the knowledge that was given to her from her mother, given to her from her mother to her grandmother. So that's where, for me, my and everybody's gonna be different, of course. But for me, when I was starting out, it was back when I was 13 years old and having that innate desire to want to learn more and going out there and reading books, reading any type of information that I could get. This was before the internet even hit the whole technology age. This was like when you had to literally go to the library and have to pick up books or let's see, or just essentially, speak to an elder that perhaps maybe has better knowledge of holistic wellness. So everybody's going to be on a different path. Um, and I noticed that there's a big disconnect generational wise. Thankfully, because we've come into that age of information that's so readily available. Um, it's this type of information can be obtained easily. What happens is that for me, I feel like as long as women who are proactive with their daughters, especially, can teach them how to better take care of their wombs on a very holistic approach rather than just telling them that, hey, this is your period, here's what you need to do, that type of thing, where it's very superficial. So I always encourage moms, especially that come in and they see me and they do their steam work and stuff like that. I'll ask them about, hey, do you have a daughter? Would your daughter be interested in steaming as well? And, we start the narrative from there. Because I feel as long as I'm making that connect, I can substantiate the whole holistic wellness approach and cement it in that person's mind so that they can go and do that practice as well and encourage that, because that's going to be um, a very big thing going forward, especially with regards to generational healing as well.
right. Now, when you say holistic approach to, thinking about our wombs as the sacred space, can you kind of compare and contrast what that looks like, what that doesn't look like in terms of our traditional, because it's like you said, we grow up, we have our
Right.
cycles. Hey, this is how you take care of it. You get older. Hey, you go to the gynecologist, once a year
Yeah.
or whatever if you have another issue, and then, after that, you may have children or whatever. So it's
Yeah.
like, what does the holistic way of looking at ourselves as, feminine holders of our sacred space, our wombs, what that actually means, what that actually looks like, and versus that whole medical approach of here's the synthetic birth control, and here's this, and here are these things that's contributing to a lot of these problems.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, so conventional wise, we're told to, um, when you have your period, buy pads, buy tampons, um, and make sure you like. maybe put like a heating pad to calm down your cramping. Um, and as far as your gynecological checks, make sure to get a pap smear every year, so that a gynecologist can document if there's any type of ailments. And then get screening work to check out to make sure, as well as blood work to check out to make sure that there's no visible abnormalities in the body, right? So that's the typical conventional wisdom, or rather conventional approach towards healing. Whereas the holistic approach, it's more proactive, and that it's more governed on the fact of prevention and putting the body in the position where it is strong and that you're conscious of how healthy your body is. So one of the things that well, there's an assortment of therapies that can be used to support the womb. The first one is juicing. Juicing therapy, so to speak, is where you're employing your live green juicing. Um, you can replace that with one meal. I like to use spirulina. A lot of people like to use wheatgrass. Just depends essentially on um, it just depends essentially on what you like per se, and ensuring that you're getting those nutrients in. It's very convenient as well, and as long as it's high quality, it's organic, that's one of the best ways to get that type of juice therapy in. The next one is the live foods. So, like your salads, um, your fresh raw fruits, your lentils, your sprouts, your beans, the nuts, um, spelt flour. Um, Instead of like the very high carbohydrates type of food that has the that very high in carbohydrates, stuff like that. You want to limit that, and you want to like your dairy. These are like your milk products. Um, Yogurt, I have like a love and hate relationship with yogurt, simply because most of the yogurt has way too much sugar already into it, and unfortunately, sugar is like the enemy to the womb, as we all know. So that type of instance, I'm just like, like try to find another alternative that can be best for the actual womb itself. Another thing is your natural herbs. So like drinking a natural herb like red raspberry is great to strengthen the uterus. If you're bleeding heavy, I recommend drinking dandelion tea. As a rule of thumb, generally, what I tell a lot of the clients, if you're making any type of herbal tea, to use, and if you're using like the loose herbs, to use 1 teaspoon per 1/8 ounce of a cup. If you're using powdered herbs, to use 1/4 of a teaspoon per 8 ounce cup. So that's like a general rule if you're using any type of loose herbal teas. Um, Next treatment is your water therapy, your hydrotherapy. So you have your yoni steaming. Of course, that's essentially using herbs, and you're allowing you putting it in a basin of hot water, and you're sitting over it, making sure it's not too hot, and you're allowing the vapors to go up the vaginal canal where it heals the surrounding organs as well. Cyst baths is another alternative that can be employed. I find that this is very helpful for fibroids. You prepare like a bath of cold water. You can add both rosemary and lavender oil, like 3 drops of it, the essential oils, and you sit in it for 3 to 5 minutes. Um, and you do that at least once or twice a month. The next one is movement, like getting yoga in. Queen of Fu has one where it employs the use of the womb sequence, and that what essentially does is allows circulation back into the pelvic basin of your womb. A lot of these ailments lack the appropriate circulation, so there's buildup, and if that doesn't essentially circulates around the body, that can pool blood as well, and thereby causing other types of buildups, type of cyst, as well as other abnormal growths as well. The next one is your clay packs. So, like clay applications. These are known as poultice. And the clay represents Mother Earth. And so, what that does is it honors and empowers the womb. And you apply the clay onto the womb. And you do that like on a new moon or on a full moon. And it pretty much exerts a profound revitalization of the womb. And the way how to prepare that is to take green clay, so natural green clay, and you can add a herb like comfrey. And then what you do is you make it into a paste, combining it with thistle water, and you apply it as a pack. And then you take a piece of cloth, clean, obviously a clean cloth, and you place it on top of the abdomen, and you let that sit there for about 2 to 3 hours, or you can do it overnight. And then when you get up in the morning, you just rinse it off. And what that does is um, essentially, once you place that actual cloth on top of it, it allows the herbs to seep into the skin, right? Because the skin essentially is like the highest absorbing organ into your body. So it allows all those nutrients to be pulled into the basin of your pelvis, and it brings balance and restoration. The other one is your castor oil pack, which is an alternative to the clay pack. And that's where it takes a very basic method. And you soak the clean cloth into your castor oil. And then you place another cloth on top of it. And then you take a heating pad or a hot towel and you sit it on top of your abdomen for about an hour. And it's the same effect, whereas your the castor oil seeps into the skin, and it allows essentially it pulls all the lipozene of the castor oil into your body, and it's great for fibroids because essentially what it does, it breaks it down on a very macro level. So once it seeps out of the body, it comes out as a discharge, and that's another alternative to fibroids. You can use that in combination with the cyst baths as well, and in combination with the steaming. Now, when it comes to these holistic remedies, it's like one of those things where, for me, I feel as though not every particular treatment is going to apply to everyone naturally. So, if this was like somebody like myself who doesn't have any type of gynecological ailments, I'm going to employ things like the juice therapy, live foods, taking in my herbs, doing my yoni steaming on a consistent basis, and a clay therapy if I really truly need to. For someone that essentially has a particular ailment, of course, if they were coming to see me, I would make recommendations that fit their particular issues. So I hope that did that answer your question.
Yeah, that did. And then also, because you talked about like the disparities, and a lot of women of color are now the ones that are the majority being affected by these issues such as fibroids, uterine cancers, tumors, just
Yes.
infections, all sorts of things. So, someone's like, okay, well, drink tea, like, how is
Yeah.
this, going to help? Once someone, implements these things, what do you notice in the difference, with them and just, their health overall?
Okay. So I do want to preface this also by saying that essentially doing all these things is great, but until you know how your body is at that moment, on a medical point of view, doing these things can only address so much. I feel like it's best for, and this is why I always suggest to the client, make sure you're seeing a functional medicine physician so that they can do a biofeedback of your body and see how your hormones are within that particular given moment. Because a lot of times when reproductive ailments, a lot of the issues are stemmed from the estrogen being out of whack, or the progesterone not producing effectively. So my concern is always to have your hormones checked, because once that's addressed, then from there, holistic practices can be best assimilated for that particular situation. So, for instance, I see a lot of hormonal imbalance related issues just because, say for instance, uh, this young lady, she comes in and she's experienced constant yeast infections. So we look at, okay, what are some possible causes for that yeast infection? And we go from there. But then you can have another client that's suffering from bacterial vaginosis. You know, if she's not on birth control, what are the actual causes that relate to that? So my attempt is always to look at the root causes first. Yes, I do suggest taking on, the holistic remedies overall. But I also want to bring it home that make sure always check your hormones, always, 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 because what happens is hormones are so sneaky, and it also leads to other issues such as cancer. So my whole basis behind that is let's prevent that first. Um, I do make holistic suggestions, and what I've seen over the course of being consistent, following that particular client, seeing how they're doing, I noticed that the first thing is cramps. They don't experience any cramps anymore. So that goes out the way, which is great. Their sex life improves. Their connection with their spouse um, energetically changes. It gets better. Another thing that I noticed too is that the numbers of days that they're menstruating or on their period, it lessens, which is great because sometimes you'll have a client that comes in and has a period that lasts for like 7 days, which is like definitely abnormal, which is like, it's to the point where sometimes I had some clients that actually believed like that was normal, like that was a normal thing, and it was like a consistent thing for that was going on for years. So once we address and we tackle and we made those recommendations and they stuck to it, that's when I noticed those first three benefits that always appears, especially after undergoing steaming with me and just undergoing those recommendations that I made on a holistic level.
Right.
Did that answer your question?
That did answer my question. Now, I want to talk about, women who, okay, we know we should do these things and have a holistic approach just for the care and betterment, preventing certain dysfunctions, diseases, cancers. But now, what about just the womb itself and what that is and what's that power? And by doing this, how it makes you, more in tune, more aligned. You talked about Queen Afua having the whole yoga, the womb yoga, right? As a practitioner,
Yeah.
that's something that I'm still working on and enjoying and doing. But I realized with just even doing her program and her step one of the womb, like you said, we're not aware of how powerful that space is in our
Yes.
body, and we're not aware of, it goes beyond just the physical maintenance of it. It goes beyond, using it for, I guess, sexual pleasure, using it to have our menstruations, like using it to give birth. Like there's just a whole other power source to it. So can you
Right.
just let people know, okay, once now we've kind of looked at the physical maintenance of it, understanding why we need to take a holistic approach to, our feminine health. What does that now unlock once we do that?
Okay, that's a great question. And I love that question. So essentially, what it means is that your womb, okay, look at it from this perspective of your womb unlocking and being a doorway to its own cosmic universe, because that's essentially what it is. And out of that womb is that power of creativity. It's that it's that level of being able to manifest into your life whatever it is that you desire. Maybe perhaps you, or maybe perhaps a woman wants a child. She could use that center or that seat of power in order to do that. Same as if she has an idea and she wants to start a business. And by cultivating that energy of the sacred power of the womb, specifically, it's connected directly to your sacral chakra, which is in Kemet they call it the Arit, and the Arit is an energy center or a pool, a whirlpool of energy. And if you could just imagine it as a circulating, constantly circulating wheel that's just sitting within your actual pelvis area, and it's constantly circulating. And if that's not circulating optimally in the best way that it can possible, you lose sight of the power of your womb. And the way how we do that essentially is not honoring it, not kind of just going about our lives and on a day to day basis, losing sight of our responsibility to ourselves as women. And so when we think of it from a spiritual sense point of view, your womb is so deeply connected to your intuition, which is another superpower, so to speak, that we all possess. And so when we go about our business and we um, maybe haphazardly ignore our womb, and we just take care of everybody but ourselves, as we more naturally inclined to do as women, we lose sight essentially of the power that we possess. And I think it's crucial to connect and realize, even if it just takes a 10 minute of your day to just use an affirmation that allows you to make that connection with yourself. It's part of that sacred feminine aspect that that should be governed in our lives. And I think that big imbalance, of course, comes from societal point of views on how we should be as women. And so, because we lost track of that uh, by what the media is telling us, or just getting caught up with day to day life, um, we kind of like we're very lax in regards to our feminine power. So, for me, I feel like once we implement these holistic practices, even on the physical level, um, for on a spiritual level, using the affirmations, on a mental level, using meditations as well to help make that connect stronger with our wombs. Can we feel empowered to use our space for creation, for intuition, um, for essentially giving us that reclamation, so to speak, into what we are capable of doing in this life.
Right, right. I think that's very important too, because um, I think the only time as women we do pay attention to our wounds, like I said, we have the issue, we're having sex, we're having a baby, we're
Yeah.
having a period. Those are like the only four times we pay attention to that space. Maybe you want to go in the bathroom, go pee, I don't know. But I'm just saying,
Yeah.
it's so not limited to those functions and those things. And I feel like, you know, of course, the disparities in our community are very unfortunate with regards to women health, because I feel like we're one of the most powerful people. And we're like, just as women, we have the ability to create. So it's
And
like,
that's so it's so ironic too.
yeah,
Um, it's considering how essentially we're giving the power to, carry life for a span of 9 months. And you would think that there would be a really big emphasis on how we care for our wombs, and not just on a physical aspect of it, but a very spiritual one. But of course, this goes back to patriarchal viewpoints as well that has taken over society. And over the centuries, it was so regarded and so hidden, and even to the point where the act of menstruation was frowned upon and looked as though women were unclean during a very powerful aspect of their lives, which is menstruation in itself. So yeah, it's you would think it would be the opposite,
Right.
but I'm optimistic in a sense that there's more awareness now, and I'm optimistic about the future with regards to the next generation. Simply because now we have the information, we have the accessibility to recognize that we possess that power now, in a sense where we don't have to implement conventional treatment. We don't have to do the conventional way of how it was done generational wise. Now we can, essentially bring back those ancient practice um, where the whole sacred feminine was revered,
Right.
and that could continue. So yeah.
For sure, for sure. Now tell us about Love Box Brew, what you're doing as a practitioner. Tell us about what that means. You're a womb priestess. What is that? What is that? And what that whole process, yoni steaming, or you have customizable herbs for women who, depending on different issues, they can come to you and get a customized blend, and then they can facilitate the steaming with you
Yeah.
over at Aquara Spa. They can, you have talk about the yoni eggs, and just like there's
Yeah,
just so much
definitely.
that you go into now the holistic care and practices. So just give a little bit on each thing and what you do with your
Sure.
company.
So, I'm a womb priestess. What that essentially means is that I guide women on their sacred journey towards womb healing. So, I employ meditations. I do guided meditations. I do affirmations and chants via from Comet. So, a lot of my practice stems from being a priestess through the 13 rites of the Munakai, which is a group in the Amazon jungle. And essentially, it was centered on a tribe of women that got together and support each woman during their rites of passage through starting from their menstrual cycle all the way towards their menopausal stage in life. So at Love Box Brew, what I do is it's not essentially coming in for just the steaming. What a client can expect is to come in and have a spiritual approach to the steaming process. So what I do is I have each client do an intake form so I can see where they're at their current womb health, and then from there I can determine, based off of the answers that they give me, what herbs to use that best fits their situation. And then from there, what I do is I walk them through the whole steaming process. They get steamed. Typically, what I do is about 20 minutes worth of steaming. Anything beyond 20 minutes can reset the body, essentially. And what happens is a client can experience what's called a phantom period, where they experience a second period that's not, it doesn't last like 3 days or anything like that, but it looks like a regular period, but it only lasts for like 24 hours or so. So to avoid that, the maximum is 20 minutes if they're starting out fresh as their first time steaming. After that, we bump it up to perhaps maybe a little bit more minutes. And after their steaming process, I walk them through a whole guided meditation. And what that does, it clears the womb of any toxicity, energetic wise, and it brings balance to the womb. After the meditation is complete, I do a color visualization where I have them imagine a spectrum of colors, and each color corresponds to a healing property, such as red corresponds to power. So we're pulling from the red energy aspect back into the womb space to bring back that power and vitality. And then we move down the road into the whole color spectrum, and then from there we close the session with doing spoken affirmations These are what's known as Hesi chants, and they derive from Kemet. And what it does, it asserts verbally um, to bring back power into the womb, bring back peace into the womb. And I walk the client through the whole process. And from there, we close out the session. I do a quick prayer, and that's essentially what I do for all the clients when they come in and what to expect every time they come in for their steaming practice.
Nice, nice, nice. So I put your website here. I know you
Thank
are
you.
doing the Yoni Steams here in Plantation, if you're in the South
Yes.
Florida area, at Aqua Spa Wellness. But they can also, if you have other contact information, you can just type it in the chat, and then I'll put it up here as well. Um, Also, before we wrap up, I just want you to you know let women know, like, if you could do, like, hey, PSA all women, the importance of caring for the womb, the importance of these holistic remedies and treatments, the importance of doing a womb consultation, doing a yoga steam, just, let everybody understand really, um, that as women and just as people taking charge of our space, especially that area, is just, I can't even like imagine. Like, I just feel like that's like the first thing we do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
No,
as
you're
an
right.
adult, So, just your last words and your take and everything.
Sure. So I want to say to all the women out there, um, we all possess the innate power of the womb, whether if it's fully functioning, whether if you lost it through a hysterectomy. We all have that. We all possess it. And by using a holistic practice of caring, of nourishing, using our receptivity as well, as it brings back sacredness, it brings back honor to the sacred feminine principle, and it helps to heal our vessels. And if we do that collectively, if we promote that collectively, can we bring peace and honor back to this generation that's in dire need of healing across the board? I think every woman holds a sacred compass within their womb. And by using it and utilizing it in a way where we're consciously aware of what is it we can do for our womb, can it put us in the best alignment so that we can essentially be that beacon of light, um, and in our beautiful power as women.
Awesome, awesome. Well, definitely, I thank you for coming on the show today. I thank you
Thank
for
you.
all the wisdom and anything that you shared with us. Definitely check out Jazzy, guys. This wonderful space at the spa where she's facilitating the yoni steams. She also has yoni eggs, which we didn't get to get into it this time, and just the
Oh, I
benefit
love it.
of that. I know. It's just like, I'm just like, yeah, I want to, like, we need to do a whole thing on just
Yeah, we
that.
do. We do. And I would love to do a whole even talking about menstruation as well. That's
Yeah.
very powerful too.
Yes, because it's definitely important to now re-educate ourselves on all aspects, and especially
Absolutely.
um, just making a deeper connection to our power and our spirituality and our ability to change. Not only
Yeah.
our worlds, but like the generations to come. Like, when you think about it, we were in our mother's wombs, and our daughters were in our wombs, and our grandchildren are in their wombs, and it just goes, so many generations forward and so many generations back. It's really an infinite process, and to be able
Yes.
to harness and like cultivate that energy and really understand, what's going on inside of us, as human
Yeah.
beings, and the universal power that we possess that we can harness just through basically caring and honoring our space. I think it's just we definitely can't. We have to have so many different series and conversations to just really get into it. But you know,
I just wanted to touch on that too, because there is an actual research, and anybody can look this up, and it's a study where we do carry the DNA of our past previous generations. So once we heal that and we make that the focus, can we see a lot of great change on this earth, especially um, essentially because of that. And this is one of the reasons why we're seeing the effects of what's going on even today. um, there has to be that connect with healing the DNA that we all possess in our wombs. And it definitely starts there. And once we can start there and facilitate a healthier practice, rather than putting a band aid over the situation, can we get to the root of the problem? And yeah, you're definitely right. Yeah, it's once we do that, we can heal the nation, we can heal the generations.
awesome. So I'm just putting up your social media handle as well, so people can follow your page. You always have some
Thank
wonderful
you.
information
Thank
as
you.
well. And definitely, you know, women, check on your womb health. Check on your womb health. Make sure,
Absolutely.
go get your pap smear. That's great. Check your hormones, as you said, the biofeedback scan, because that's contributing to a lot of things. We put up the things to avoid certain issues, infections, and then just taking the next step to follow up with the holistic. We're not saying don't listen to your doctor and just do this, but know
Yeah,
that
yeah,
there's
yeah.
a different approach to beginning to heal yourself and harness that energy. All right. Well, thank you so
Yes.
much again,
Thank
Jazz.
you. Thank you.
So, and Dominique, until next time, be well, stay well, cultivate life.